Diane and Ted have both talked about some enacted policies, BioShield, BARDA, the orphan drug tax credit, that have been successful policies that we need to continue to bolster. Congressman Lance, in his introductory remarks, spoke briefly on the MODDERN Cures Act, which is a proposal we certainly very strongly supportive of, and Myrl Weinberg with the National Health Council, just one of the most, I think, influential, impactful associations here on behalf of the voice of patients, will speak about that legislation. Thank you.
So just to let you know, those of you that might not, the National Health Council is a nonprofit umbrella organization, and we have over 100 national health-related organizations and companies in our membership. But the core groups are about 50 of the patient advocacy organizations. And so they are the groups that really helped us when we first contemplated writing our first original piece of legislation, which is now the MODDERN Cures Act. The number is H.R. 3116, and as you heard, Representative Lance introduced this legislation in 2013. I want to give you a few reasons why we felt and our members felt that this was critical, and generally they'll reflect what you've already heard. Most of the issues that you've heard, from repurposing drugs and the problems that sometimes one runs into in trying to repurpose a drug, as well as many of the other things, we believe the MODDERN Cures Act will address those issues. In the media, it's been called a game-changing legislation and transformative. The last thing I'd say on just where it stands now is it has very broad bipartisan support. So we're very pleased. I think there are about 76 co-sponsors and almost equally divided between Republicans and Democrats. Two provisions of the MODDERN Cures Act that had to do with coding and reimbursement for diagnostics were passed as part of the SGR fix, and that was enacted in April. But the remaining two or three provisions of the Act are being currently considered by the Energy and Commerce Committee as part of the 21st Century Cures Initiative. And they're looking to all of us to help generate more co-sponsors of this legislation, because they're very serious about including some or all of what's left of that bill, which is critically important in the 21st Century Cures bills that will be forthcoming. So why did we need this? We had the chief scientific and medical officers of the patient advocacy organizations help us recognize that there are probably 30,000 drugs that were abandoned by the pharmaceutical industry over the past 30 years. Many promising drug candidates have been abandoned not because the companies felt they wouldn't work, but because they didn't have strong enough patents. And as most of you probably know, patents are a huge incentive for companies to go ahead and develop products, and it protects them from competition from generics so that they can recoup their costs. Part of the problem is that for many of these potential drugs, the patents just run out too soon. Developing a new drug, as you heard, is long and extensive process. It can take many years to bring a drug to market. And because the drug companies currently must apply for patents very early in the research and development processes, patents often expire while the drug is making its way through the R&D process, the clinical trials, and then FDA approval. When a drug finally enters the market, instead of something like maybe 14 years, 12 years, 10 years left on the patent, sometimes the patent is gone, and so there is no protection. If a company thinks that a drug might not have enough patent protection left when the product actually is on the market, the company does not pursue it. So they have all these compounds that they're never going to pursue, that are on the shelves, and no one else can have that information and take it forward. In addition, many of the most promising treatments don't qualify for a patent. I learned a lot about this in this process, but to get a patent, an invention must be new or novel, and it cannot be obvious in the sense that it can't be an obvious change to something that was already known at the time. That's referred to as non-obvious. And so sometimes a promising new drug candidate is not new or non-obvious. And there are many ways that things can become non-obvious that really I think people aren't aware of, so that a researcher could have some information about a potential product, They could speak about it, they could publish a paper about it. It is no longer non-obvious, and therefore they cannot obtain a patent. Our current system encourages the fastest, least expensive innovation, not necessarily innovation that results in treatments that are the most important to society and to individual patients. The risk of not having enough patent left when the drug gets approved discourages companies, as I described, from pursuing medicines that take a long time to develop, such as medicines that prevent disease, treat early stage disease, treat diseases that are very slow in progression like Alzheimer's. This is because the longer the drug development process goes on, the shorter the patent time left. So, MODDERN, what does MODDERN do? The MODDERN Cures Act resolves these issues. It spurs innovation by incentivizing drug makers to develop promising drug candidates to treat unmet medical needs that have no patent protection or will have too little patent protection when the drug comes to market. So we are talking about all of those 7,000 or rare diseases, Alzheimer's, and other diseases or conditions that have absolutely no treatment or very little treatments that aren't that effective. Once the decision is made to move forward with the compound, it can be driven by the drug's potential then to benefit patients and enhance the public's health, because we will be taking the patent issue off the table. It will no longer be a consideration, and I'll tell you about how we do that. More abandoned treatments will make it to patients that are waiting. You've heard from some here, transforming the way we treat many diseases and disabilities. The MODDERN Cures Act removes the disincentive for companies to pursue drugs that take a long time to develop. That's the bottom line. Passage of the Act will result in increased research and development into medicines with the potential to prevent disease or disability, and as I said, treat diseases like Alzheimer's, other rare diseases where there are no treatments available. Under the MODDERN Cures Act, a new medicine that is being studied to treat an unmet medical need can be designated as a dormant therapy. So these are all those compounds, whether they're at NIH or within companies or wherever they are, that are sleeping on the shelves. They are dormant. And so we created a whole new category called dormant therapies. A designated dormant therapy can receive regulatory exclusivity, which protects the drug from generic competition. Right now the legislation says for 15 years after FDA approval. Takes the place of having a patent. This allows manufacturers to pursue medicines that have the greatest potential to meet an unmet medical need, even if the treatment, as I said, no longer has a patent. The dormant therapy designation is only available when requested. It is an optional pathway, and it does not apply automatically to potential products. And then finally, it's important to note that the MODDERN Cures Act ensures that the lower cost generics are not prevented from entering the market at the end of that regulatory exclusivity time period. This is because the Act requires the manufacturers of the dormant therapies that they have to agree up front not to use any existing patents to block generics after the 15-year regulatory exclusivity period ends. So they basically they have to sign a patent waiver. They give up any patent that they might have remaining, and so the generics know that they can prepare and come to market as soon as that period is up. And that means that there's a predictable time period not only for the original brand name, potentially companies' products, that there is also now a predictable time for the generic companies to produce their products and get them to market. I'm going to stop, but I want to let you know that next Tuesday we'll be having a briefing, the National Health Council, on Capitol Hill on the House side, solely on the MODDERN Cures Act. And so you would hear a lot more and a lot more detail about how that act could help resolve many of the issues we've heard about today. Thank you.